Okay, so when you hear the name Elton John, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Sold-out stadiums, right? Those unbelievable glasses? A ton of timeless hits? Yeah, that's all true. But here's the thing, that's only half the story. The journey of this absolute legend is really a tale of two different people. It's a story of this profound personal transformation, from a shy kid to a global superstar, and then into something totally different. So let's get into it. At the very heart of it all, you have this fundamental conflict. On one side, you've got Reginald Dwight, a quiet, incredibly gifted kid from a London suburb, kind of repressed, living in a really strict house. And then, on the other side, boom, you get Elton John, the flashy, larger-than-life superstar who just owned the world stage. So how did one become the other? And what did it cost him? That's the story we're going to unpack.
All right, so our story doesn't start under those big stadium lights. Nope. We have to go back to Pinner, Middlesex, a suburb of London. This is where the whole Elton John persona was actually born, forged in this really stark contrast between his massive talent and a pretty tough childhood. Reginald Dwight was, and I mean this, a true prodigy. He taught himself piano when he was just 4. By 11, he lands a scholarship to the super prestigious Royal Academy of Music. But while he was mastering all the classical stuff, his real passion was the rock and roll his mom would bring home. So at 17, he drops out to chase that dream, and that decision leads to the single most important meeting of his entire life in 1967, when he answers a newspaper ad and gets paired up with a young lyricist named Bernie Taupin.
This was really the first major step in his whole transformation. He starts to shed the name Reginald Dwight and literally creates a new identity. And Elton John wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It was a tribute to his bandmates in a group called Bluesology, the saxophonist Elton Dean and the frontman Long John Baldry. He was literally building a new person out of the music and the people he loved.
All right, let's fast forward to the 1970s because this is when everything just explodes. Elton John becomes this global phenomenon, a true hit-making machine. And his rise to the top was really built on two main pillars, this incredibly unique songwriting partnership and a stage persona that was just pure, wonderful spectacle.
Their songwriting method was, well, it was kind of nuts, honestly, and totally separate. Bernie Taupin would write a full set of lyrics by himself and just hand them over. Elton would then sit down at a piano, having never discussed it with Bernie, and compose the music, sometimes in under an hour. He was just reacting to the feel and the rhythm of the words. It's so unorthodox, but it was unbelievably effective.
So just how effective was it? Well, look at this number, 7. That's for 7 consecutive #1 albums in the United States in just 3 years. I mean, to put that into perspective, at his peak, people were saying that Elton John's sales accounted for 2% of all records sold worldwide. It was just this era of complete and total commercial dominance.
And here they are, from Honky Chateau all the way to Rock of the Westies. This wasn't just a string of hits, it was a complete cultural takeover. Albums like the masterpiece Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and Captain Fantastic, which was the first album ever to debut at #1 on the Billboard chart, they just cemented him as the biggest pop star on the entire planet.
But the music was only one piece of the puzzle. The other was the spectacle. As Elton himself put it, the outrageous costumes, the platform boots, the insane glasses, they weren't just for show. He genuinely believed they were essential for him to even be able to perform, to become that artist on stage. But why?
Because here's the crucial point. The whole flamboyant persona, it was armor. It was a mask for the shy, repressed, and deeply insecure Reginald Dwight who is still hiding under all of it. See, he was a performer who was kind of stuck behind a piano, so he used fashion to become a spectacle, to build this character who is everything he felt he was.
But that kind of pressure, living behind a mask, it always comes with a price. And the incredible highs of the 70s, they eventually led to a pretty devastating crash, where the demands of the persona and the crushing reality of fame led to a deep, deep personal crisis. The first major crack in the armor really appeared in 1976. In what was a remarkably brave interview for that time, he told Rolling Stone magazine that he was bisexual. Now, while it was kind of an open secret in the industry, saying it out loud to the public caused a huge backlash, especially in America. His record sales started to slip, and that unbelievable streak of #1 albums, it was over.
And on top of all that, he was dealing with a deepening struggle with addiction. He was introduced to cocaine in the early 70s, he said, to overcome his shyness, and he just spiraled into this 15-year cycle of drug and alcohol abuse plus bulimia. By the late 80s, his life was just a total haze. The turning point, The one thing that finally broke through the noise was the tragic death of his friend Ryan White, a teenager who had gotten HIV from a blood transfusion.
Ryan White's courage, in the face of so much prejudice and sickness, it just had this profound effect on Elton. He saw Ryan's grace and dignity, and he realized he was just actively destroying his own life. Just a few months after Ryan passed away, Elton John checked himself into rehab, completely determined to get clean so he could honor his friend's memory and actually start helping other people. So this is where the second act of his life really begins, and you could argue it's even more impactful. See, sobriety didn't just save him. It gave him this new, profound sense of purpose that would go on to redefine his legacy way beyond the music. And the scale of his new mission, well, it can be summed up by this number: over $565 million. In 1992, fresh out of rehab, he started the Elton John AIDS Foundation. And this was not some vanity project. This was a mission. It became one of the absolute leading nonprofit funders for HIV and AIDS programs all across the globe. And the impact is just staggering. The foundation works in 90 countries, and it specifically focuses on helping the most marginalized communities, the people who are so often overlooked. And the results are real. Hundreds of thousands of people given access to life-saving care and testing, and it was all born from a promise he made to a young friend. And artistically, he didn't slow down one bit. He found a whole new creative life, writing for movies and theater, winning Oscars for his work on The Lion King and Rocketman, a Tony for the score of Ida, and just this year, 2024, he won an Emmy, which made him only the 19th person in history to achieve the coveted EGOT status. But the ultimate fulfillment, the real prize, it came from family. He and his husband, David Furnish, have 2 sons, Zachary and Elijah. And Elton has said over and over that his kids are his proudest achievements, that they gave his life a meaning that fame never, ever could. And that new priority is what led him to launch that massive farewell tour so he could finally get off the road and just be a dad.
So when you look back at the 2 lives of Sir Elton John, it really leaves you with a fascinating question. I mean, we can all name our favorite song, Rocket Man, Tiny Dancer, Your Song, but after everything he's been through and everything he's done, what is his single greatest hit? Is it one of those timeless melodies we all love? Or is it the global philanthropic work that has saved and changed millions of lives? It's something to think about.